Hello, Grant Wiley here from History and Action Games and Worthington Publishing. I'm going to do a quick walkthrough tonight of a solitaire play of Tranquility Base, a new one we're getting ready to launch on October 3rd. This allows you to race to be the first to the moon using the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo missions from the 1960s. Also included on the Kickstarter is Soviet Moon, which adds the Russians as a artificial intelligence bot player to the game. It has a separate board, separate box, separate cards, and normally you'd place that over here to the side. But to begin with, I'm going to walk through real quick the basics of this. Each player, whether it's 1 to 4, this is a 1 to 4 player game, gets 6 missions. In the 4-player game, each player gets 5 missions. They're dealt out randomly, unknown what you're going to get until you get it. In the solitaire version, you get 2 Mercury, 2 Gemini in the blue, and 2 Apollo in the white. This is the Apollo 11 I've drawn, and you can see it's got some great art here by Van. It shows you the equipment you need. So I need a Saturn V rocket, I need an Apollo spacecraft, and I need the LM equipment, lunar module. If I complete this mission, I get 2 bonus fuel. How this works is you get 7 fuel counters over here at the start of the game. With those, you're going to pay the pad cost to apply this equipment to the mission. So for 1 fuel, I can apply the Apollo spacecraft to the Apollo 11. Also at the start of your turn, you get 8 cards randomly drawn from the deck there in the center. I've already shuffled and set up the deck. There's a bunch more cards over here that aren't used in the solitaire version, depending on the number of players. You set the deck. I'm not going to go real long here explaining the game. This is not the final components to the game, just so you know. This was a couple demo versions we had put together for the World Board Gaming Championships and a couple other things. You can see the board here. On the board are the missions, okay? And my starting piece is over here in this corner. It's the lunar lander. Again, not final piece. We're going a little bit nicer than these lay down counters. But you move around, you launch your mission, and when you do, you move around the board to the orbit until you end up on the mission. So for like Apollo 11, I'd have to get my lunar lander over here to the Apollo 11. I would remove all the equipment from that mission. I'd then take my patch here. Man, I'm sorry guys. And put it on my Apollo 11 mission there. It means a completed mission. The goal is, in the 4-player game, to be the first person to complete your 6 missions. And then relaunch one of those 6 to end up on the moon. Now, during the turn, this is the sequence of play. At the start of the turn, you draw 1 card from either the discard pile, which is here, or the main draw deck. You recycle your fuel. So all the fuel you spent on the previous turn, you get back, plus any bonus fuel for missions completed. At that point, you do actions, which I'm going to go ahead and walk through the actions for my turn right now. Sorry about this. I'm doing the best I can here on this. But these are my 8 cards I drew. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got an Atlas D rocket with a, and your rockets are what launch your missions. And I want to get these up. I got a Mercury spacecraft. That cost 1 fuel to put. Well, I've got 2 Mercury missions here, so I'm going to need a Mercury spacecraft on those. I've got a Saturn V rocket, which cost 3 fuel to place on the pad. Bigger the rocket, the more expensive. And I've got an Apollo spacecraft. So I've actually got enough to launch, if I can get me a lunar module, one of the Saturn missions. But at this point, I don't have enough to launch any of the others. The things you can do during your turn. You can assemble missions, which means paying the cost to put these on the missions. You can then launch those missions. And to launch it, once you have all the necessary equipment, you spend the launch cost for the rocket. So I get all my things on there, I spend 4 fuel, I turn the equipment sideways, and that allows me to move up to 6 spaces each turn, spending 1 fuel for each space moved. You can move your playing piece. Again, you spend your fuel, move your piece. You can complete missions. You can move equipment. So if I've got, say, a Saturn V here, and I've got a lunar module over here, I can shift the equipment, no cost. It doesn't cost anything. When you're drawing from the draw deck, you may draw new missions. You can abort one of these missions, move it to the discard pile, lay down a new mission. I'm just trying to walk through this real quick. And you can play wild, history, and instant cards, which add special effects. Like this history card adds, this was the first solo transatlantic flight. You add +3 to any move. So if I were to use that Saturn V, I could move 6. Play that history card, add 3, and it's 9. The Atlas D rocket, you can move up to 3 space. So let's go ahead and play through a turn real quick here. I want to get this Mercury spacecraft down because I want to knock out these Mercury missions quick, if I can. So this costs 1 fuel. I place it here below the Mercury 2 mission. I'm going to launch one of the chimps into space. The astronauts weren't happy about that. And I spend one of my 7 fuel to do that. I'm now going to place the Apollo spacecraft mission for 1 fuel. And I shorted myself because I get to draw 1 card at the beginning of the turn. And I got a Gemini spacecraft, which is great because I've got 2 Gemini missions I have to complete. I place him down for 1 fuel. Some of the Gemini missions need an extra rocket, the Agena rocket, because they were practicing docking in space. And what you want to do is get through as many of these hand cards early. There's a lot of strategy to this in how you're going to play. So I've got an Apollo spacecraft on the Apollo 11. I'm going to go ahead and put 1 on the Apollo 14. Start getting that mission set up. So I've burned through 4 of my 7 fuel points. I've got 3 fuel points left. I want to, let's go ahead and set ourselves up for this Apollo mission. I'm going to go ahead and get the Saturn V, spend my last 3 fuel here onto the pad. So I'm down to 4 cards in my hand. At the end of your turn, once you've spent all your fuel points, you have to discard a card. Well, I've got my Mercury missions, and I have an Atlas D rocket. But for these 2 missions, and I'm trying to get it in here, guys. The camera work is shoddy, I know. This isn't my best camera. But I need a redstone rocket for these. These were a couple of the early Mercury missions, and the camera, the lighting on this is terrible, but if you look, it says a redstone. Come on, focus, focus, focus. Each of these need a redstone. So I'm going to discard this Atlas D rocket, get rid of him. That leaves me 3 cards in my hand. Okay? I now, because I'm playing the solitaire game, you've got 10 turns to complete your 6 missions and get to the moon. And I've got a pile of these little counters over here to the side. 10 of them. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of 1 and start a new turn. And this is really how simple this is. But there is so much depth because you've got to assemble your rockets, decide the best order and what to do things. Do you skip the Gemini and Mercury missions early and go straight to the Apollo? They cost more to assemble. You've got limited fuel points. So there's some good decision making here. Now I've got to refill my hand at the end of the turn to 8 cards. I draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm not happy. I saw another Atlas D. And these wild cards, I haven't shown you these yet. These you can play on your opponents. If you're playing solitaire, they have to be played on your missions. Normally they cost fuel, and what they do is cause bad things to happen. This was a Mercury 6 loose heat shield. Van put a lot of detail on here. Great reading. During Mercury 6, signal was received to mission control. Heat shield may be loose. The craft could have burned to ashes. You play this on another player's launch Mercury mission, and it calls the mission to be aborted. However, I have a couple of instant cards here that allow me to negate a wild. So if I played this on somebody else and they had this instant card, they could negate the wild. So I've refilled my hand to 8 cards. It's the start of the next turn. The first thing you do is get back your 7 fuel points. I haven't completed a mission yet, so I don't get any bonus fuel. But let's see what I drew. I drew the Gemini 3 mission. So if I wanted to abort one of these Mercury missions, I could throw in an extra Gemini mission. I drew an Atlas D, and I do not have any daggone rockets that are going to help me. For 2 fuel, I can burn an extra card at the end of the turn, and I'm probably going to do that just because I've got some, man, even the instance. This is the Apollo 13. Remember the movie with Tom Hanks, Houston, we've had a problem. You can play this for no cost on another opponent and cause a launched Apollo mission to be aborted. But I do have some stuff here I can do. I'm going to, gosh, I'm gonna keep the mission out there. I got an Agena rocket here. This costs 2 fuel to put on the pad. This is one I need to complete Gemini 12. So we're going to go ahead and spin that to get that out there. Boy, do I want to abort one of my other missions and drop in this Gemini mission. I just need a Titan II rocket. And I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to go ahead and spend, we're going to, because I haven't launched any mission, I can discard this wild card. So I'm going to go to the discard phase, discard that. I'm going to spend 2 more fuel and discard 1 extra card. And we're going to get rid of the Gemini 3 mission just because I don't think I need this in my hand right now. I think I can draw another mission before that. That's going to be that turn. So I didn't get much done there. I did manage to burn through 3 cards. So you do upkeep. If I had any wild cards on any of these missions, I'd either remove them or turn them sideways, showing that they had gone through. You do upkeep. You then do discard. So I did my discard. I spent my 2 fuel. I'm going to go ahead and refill my hand. Add 1, 2, 3. Okay, that worked out pretty well. 3 more cards. So that's 8. I'm going to get my 4 fuel points back for the next turn. And now I'm also going to, I lose another turn. So now I'm down to 8 turns to complete my missions. The clock is ticking. Okay. And I've got some good equipment here, however. So let's go ahead and get rolling. I got me another Saturn V rocket with a pad cost of 3 fuel. So I'm going to drop that on Apollo 14. Now all I need is the lunar module for each of those, and I can get those launched. But that cost me 3, leaving me 4 fuel. 6. And I'm short myself because at the start of your turn, again, you get to draw from the discard pile or the draw pile. When you're playing solitaire, you can only draw from the draw pile. What's interesting is in Soviet Moon and the multiplayer version, if you want to play cooperative with another player, if you see somebody's got some missions over here that they don't have the equipment for, and you've got the equipment in your hand, the last card on top of the discard deck is going to be your discard. So if somebody over here needed a Saturn V and you've got a Saturn V in your hand and you want to cooperate with them, and this becomes very important in the Soviet Moon expansion where you're racing the Soviets, and I'll do a demo on that here before we launch the project. You would discard that Saturn V. They could pick it up as their first card from the next hand, and then you're helping them get around the board. You want to beat the Soviets. But in this one, I'm trying to complete some missions. I got another Gemini spacecraft, which I can drop on this Gemini 12, which will be important because I got the Agena there. So we'll drop that down there for 1 fuel. Let's see. I got the Apollo spacecraft. I've got the Atlas D. Okay, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and do another discard. I'm going to get rid of the lunar rover for the Apollo missions. The 15 through 17, I think it's 15 through 17, you need the lunar rover as part of the equipment. I don't need that for any of these, so I'm going to discard that. And then I'm going to spend another 2 fuel points, get rid of the Atlas D. And the clock is ticking, and I haven't launched a mission yet, although I've got my spacecraft set up pretty good. I've got my Gemini, I got my Gina, so I've got some missions in the hopper. It's just getting to them. So we go ahead and draw our 3. 1, 2, 3, and I see 2 Titan IIs and a lunar module. So we're going to be flying this turn, folks. So I add my 4 fuel back in. I discard 1 turn. I'm down to 7 turns now, but I've got 7 fuel and some equipment I need. I've got 8 cards in my hand. The first thing you do, you draw a card. Oh, and I got another Titan II, which both of these Gemini missions require Titan II rockets. So we're going to see a rocket launch here. Let's do the simplest one first. Let's drop it on the Gemini 7 and pay the 2 pad cost. To launch this mission, launch this rocket, it cost 3 fuel. We're going to launch. So what you do is you turn the thing sideways. I spend my 3 fuel to launch it. And we're finally going to get moving. Now the Titan II has a max move of 4 spaces. I've only got 2 fuel left. So what I'm going to do is rather than move my ship, that sounds goofy, I'm going to go ahead and drop another Titan II onto Gemini 12. So now I've got my Gina rocket, I've got everything set for my Gemini missions. I'm going to concentrate on getting those first and then working back around. Once you go into orbit, even if missions get aborted, you don't go back to start, you stay in orbit, you've just got to relaunch those missions. So I am out of fuel. I've got a mission launched. I'm finally in space. I'm going to do a discard here. I'm going to get rid of this Houston. We've had a problem, which I'd have to play on myself. Wild an instance, you have to play on yourself, and I don't want to abort a mission, so we'll discard that. So that leaves me 6 cards. I do my draw for the turn. 1, 2. I got another Gemini. I got I got to get rid of this one. Corned beef controversy. During the Gemini mission, one of the astronauts took a corned beef sandwich into space, and the crumbs got kind of everywhere, and they weren't happy about it. If I complete a mission, I don't get the fuel bonus. So, like, the extra fuel I'd need, I wouldn't get. So, we're going to mark off a turn, and I am now down to 6 turns, and I ain't looking good. I refill my 7 fuel points. I draw 1 new card, and it's a Mercury spacecraft, which again I need. But we're going to get moving. I've got a mission launched here. Daggone it. I'm not seeing myself win this one, guys. It's not looking good. I'm going to spend... Daggone it, I want to get more of these out here. I'm going to spend 1 fuel to get this Mercury out of my hand. I want to put the spacecraft down here on my Mercury 3 because I've got Mercury 2 and 3 next to each other. I can get these completed quick if I can get a redstone rocket.